This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome, episode 375 for September 22nd, 2019. I'm Julia Rios, your host for today's episode, and you're listening to Little Wonders, Cast of Wonders thematic flash fiction collections. I'm a writer, editor, podcaster, and narrator, and I'm the guest editor of this year's Banned Books Week showcase at Cast of Wonders. It was an honor and a pleasure to read all the submissions of stories about fighting censorship and oppression and reclaiming narratives. September 22nd to 28th is Banned Books Week, an annual international event celebrating the freedom to read and highlighting the importance of free and open information. This year's theme is Censorship Leaves Us in the Dark. Keep the light on. Sunshine is the best disinfectant, as the saying goes, and stories are like sunshine for the soul. The words we share with each other give us hope, light, warmth, and strength to resist oppression. This week, we're sharing some of that light and strength with you. Our first story is Our Skin Will Now Bear the Testimonies by Innocent Chizaram Elo, a Cast of Wonders original. When he is not receiving tons of rejections from cat adoption agencies, Innocent finds time to read, write, and tweet. He has works published and forthcoming in Fireside, Reckoning Press, Strange Horizons, Cosmic Roots and Eldritch Shores, A Beautiful Resistance, Overland Magazine, and elsewhere. He is a finalist of the Short Story Day Africa Prize, Gerald Kroc Award, and Author of Tomorrow contest. This story is narrated by Solomon Osadolo. Solomon is a writer, digital storyteller, and content marketing strategist based in Lagos, Nigeria. He currently coordinates content marketing at Andela Across Africa. He is also deeply immersed in the developer community in Lagos and Sub-Saharan Africa via his work with For Loop Africa, where he heads communications and, as editor-in-chief of For Loop Weekly, leads on initiatives that help expand opportunities for young people looking to build careers in technology.
Our Skin Will Now Bear the Testimonies by Innocent Elo. Nduka, you better hurry or you'll be late for school. Your breakfast is getting cold and you know you don't like when curds form in your pap. Aniele calls from the kitchen. Yes, Mama, Nduka answers from his bedroom. The boy tiptoes to the door and gently bolts it before unbuttoning his school shirt. He stands in front of the mirror and looks at the string of words that snails along his belly. The resistance will no longer be written in books. It will be written on our skin. He says this slowly as if he's tasting every word. He knows where the words are from. A book of poetry his mother used to keep on the center table in the parlor. It was the last gift Nduka's father had given to his mother before he died. After Reverend Mojojo's latest sermon about the evils of subversive texts on Monday evening, Uncle Nnamdi had followed them home and taken the book, despite Aniele's pleadings that she would never open the book, that she would stash it away at the bottom of her late husband's trunk, that the book was the only thing her husband left that Uncle Nnamdi had not already taken away. Nduka runs his hand along the words. It tingles. The resistance will no longer be written in books. It will be written on our skin. The words appeared on his body the morning after the latest towering pile of books had been burnt in front of the library. He did not tell anyone. He stopped playing football at the open field near St. Dodo's Chapel, lying to his friends that he sprained his ankle and started tying his towel a little below his chest when he went to bathe. Nduka knew what would happen if he risked letting anyone know about the words that had appeared on his body. Diola was the first person to have words appear on her body. Everyone in class saw them crisscrossed across her arm when Miss Ibura insisted she removed her cardigan because the class was stuffy and Diola was soaking sweat. Before the class could recover from the shock, soldiers had swarmed in and taken her away. This happened 3 full months ago. They never saw Diola again. But the words on Diola's arm stuck with Nduka. The resistance will no longer be written with ink. It will be with our blood. Nduka, Aniele is banging at the door now. You are running late. I'm already done, Mama. Nduka hurriedly buttons his school shirt before scampering out of the bathroom. He wolfs down the now cold pap and akara before dashing off to school. Classes fleet past Nduka in a blur. His mind keeps wandering back to the words on his skin. He rushes to the bathroom as soon as the bell for recess goes. There, he turns on the tap to create an illusion that the toilet is in use, stands in front of the mirror and unbuttons his shirt. The resistance will no longer be written in books. It will be written on our skin. The resistance will no longer be written with ink. It will be with our blood. Nduka freezes as he hears the words and the sound of a door bolt clicking shut. He turns around to see Annie standing beside the door, and his heart skips a beat. Last year, before the book banning, Nduka had told his mother that he liked a boy in his class. After he and Aniele finished reading a book about a man who was in love with another man, his next-door neighbor, but could not tell him. Years after his neighbor died, the man would find his neighbor's diary, where he wrote about being in love with him. When you love someone, make sure you tell them when they can hear you say it, Aniele had whispered before kissing her son goodnight. The next day, Nduka had written, I love you, Annie, and wanted to pass it to Annie during integrated science class. But Miss Ibura intercepted it and forced him to read it aloud to the whole class. The whole class had laughed and Annie had burst into tears. What are you doing here? Nduka asks. You should make sure you lock the door, Nduka. You know the soldiers will take you away if anyone sees you. Annie says and goes over to the sink. He shuts off the tap and removes his school shirt. Nduka comes closer to see the words that ran the whole length of Annie's spine clearly. The resistance will no longer be taken away from us because we have become the resistance. I noticed them this morning. I tried to read them, but I couldn't, no matter how I twisted myself in front of the mirror. What does it say? The resistance will no longer be taken away from us because we have become the resistance. Have you told anyone else about it? And he asks before putting on his shirt. No, you? Same. Now let's get out of here before people notice we're alone together. Femo! Okay, the burly boy who sits in the last row in class shouts as soon as Nduka and Annie walk out of the bathroom. He is standing at the end of the hallway with a bunch of his friends. Who is he calling Femo? Me, Nduka says and grabs Annie's hand and starts pulling him to the other end of the hallway. Hey Annie, why are you holding Femo's hand like that? Maybe he and Femo got cozy in the bathroom. One of Okay's friends cuts in. Just keep walking, Nduka, Annie says, but it's too late. He has lost grip of Nduka's hand, and Nduka is facing Okay and his friends. My name is Nduka. I'll call you whatever I want to call you, Okay says and thuds his bald fist against Nduka's chest. Nduka retaliates with a punch on Okay's jaw. By the time the soldiers come to separate the scuffle, Nduka's school shirt has been ripped into pieces, and Okay's face looks like it has been pummeled by rocks. He has the words on his body, one of the soldiers says. See it right there below his ribcage. The soldiers scoop Nduka off his feet and begin to take him away. Annie runs after them. He catches up with them just before they get to the school gate. Wait! I also have the words on my body. Take me too. He is lying, Nduka tells the soldiers. Annie, tell them you are lying. I am telling the truth. Annie removes his school shirt and turns his back for the soldiers to see. The resistance will no longer be taken away from us because we have become the resistance, he says. By now, all the teachers and students have gathered at the school gate. I also have one, a voice in the crowd at the school gate says. It is Simi, the bespectacled girl who sits next to Nduka. She spreads her palms to reveal the words. The resistance will scald your tongue until you spit it out. The resistance is the moon, gentle light but fierce at manning ocean tides, another student says as he removes his shoes and socks to reveal the words on the soles of his feet. The resistance is now. The resistance is here. The resistance can never be stopped. The resistance is a woman in a red dress dancing in front of soldiers sent by town council to dispel riots. The resistance is every time you have chosen to love, knowing you could be killed for loving the way you do. The soldiers stand stapled to the ground, not knowing what to do. The voices grow louder past the school gate until they wrap around the whole town like a gauze.
I'm someone who's never gotten a tattoo. I've never wanted a tattoo because I've never felt able to commit to the idea of something permanently being on my skin. But what if it was my story, my life, my narrative, my values? What if it was the only way to show who I was and keep it from being taken away? And what if that was a way to reach more of my community and connect me with others like me? Words have power. We have power. Existence has power. Our second story is Weeds by Maya Prasad, a Cast of Wonders original. Maya Prasad is a South Asian American writer, a Caltech graduate, and a former Silicon Valley software engineer. She now resides in the Pacific Northwest, where she enjoys hiking, canoeing, and raising her budding bookworm daughter. A recipient of the 2017 We Need Diverse Books mentorship program, she writes stories featuring unwieldy technologies, Indian culture, and subversive STEM girls. This story is narrated by Athena Hawk. Athena Hawk is a high school writer and dancer in Houston, Texas.
Weeds by Maya Prasad. Narrated by Athena Hawk. The neutrality of the algorithms of the grid is a lie. The words I'm writing are practically heresy in the inner galaxy, where the artificial intelligence of the grid directs every aspect of our lives, from our jobs to our production patterns to our partners. AI led me to my boyfriend Krishna. AI led me to gardening, a meditative hobby with underlying physical science. AI even offers me therapy, statistically accumulated advice on how to handle my overbearing mother. Said overbearing mother pokes her head in my room. Kavya, how's the thesis coming along? AI interpersonal counselor. Don't lie, but don't give unnecessary details. It's great, Ma, working on it now. Her forehead crinkles with worry. I thought you'd be done by now. AI interpersonal counselor. Appeal to the other person's values. I just want it to be perfect. She nods in approval. You remind me of myself when I was your age. First in my class, determined to get the best assignment after graduation. Just remember, efficiency is also important. AI interpersonal counselor. Give gratitude where it is due. Thanks, Ma, I have learned a lot from you. In the plot I've overtaken on the south end of the property, I measured the minerals in the soil mixture. Add fertilizer here, adjust the irrigation system there. I could use a robot gardener for this work, but it's so much more satisfying to get my hands dirty, to inhale the mingling fragrances of earth and flowers and fruit, to pop a taste of cherry tomato in my mouth. Ma doesn't approve of hobbies, but she relented because the garden planning algorithm I wrote will serve as an important centerpiece for my thesis. All the relevant factors were injected into my code: location, season, humidity, temperature, sunlight access, soil content, water purity, and more. To give the garden a personal touch, I uploaded Cook's frequently used recipes to prioritize the most needed ingredients. Thus, we have plenty of cilantro for chutneys, lychee for Papa's sweet tooth, okra for Ma's favorite fried dish, and a particularly pungent chili that's perfect for the spicy pickled mangoes that I pair with anything and everything. Catering to our tastes isn't inherent bias, however. It's a purposeful input of data that yields highly satisfactory output. Almost as satisfying as the boy waiting for me under a lemon tree. Krishna grins. Are you still obsessing about that weed? I don't obsess. I ponder, I question, I investigate. No need to mention the curious thorny vine in question has been keeping me up, haunting my dreams. Right. He offers me a bicolor rose. Sunny yellow petals with fiery red tips. Did you just pick this from my garden? It's from my mom's, I promise. His impish smile is infectious, and whether he's telling the truth or not doesn't really matter. I pull him down beside me into the dirt between the cilantro and the sweet bay. The damp soil and the late afternoon sun and Krishna's lips on mine are intoxicating. A weed in my garden indicates a bug in my code. Scouring each line, I search for what went wrong. At this level in my studies, any deficiencies in my algorithm, no matter how small, will impact my job assignment after graduation. Yet simulation after simulation indicates there is no bug, implying a discrepancy between the simulator and the real-life conditions of the garden. However, this particular simulator has been rigorously tested, and I verified all the data inputs myself. The app that tracks my menstrual periods alerts me that something is off. You did this on purpose, Ma says. Why would you think that? She crosses her arms. Nobody gets pregnant by accident anymore. My pills are pre-formulated, my hormones regulated, my vitamin intake medically balanced by Cook. The algorithms are infallible, unwanted pregnancies unheard of. I think back. Did I do this on purpose, subconsciously? But why? Papa sighs. It's time we consulted the matchmaker for your long-term plans. I'm instantly annoyed. I'm happy about the baby. I want to marry Krishna. I don't need AI to tell me that. The algorithm is thousands of years old. It brought me to your mother. We will consult it. I like to grow things, to nourish them into fruition, to watch them bloom and surprise me with a particularly fragrant note. I even admire my little weed because it slipped into my garden with a will of its own. These are my preferences, my inherent biases. Did they lead to my pregnancy? Even now, I can't put my finger on the moment that went wrong, the moment that ultimately went right. My parents put too much stock into advice given by machines. The equation should be simple. Me plus Krishna plus baby equals we're all fine. Yet the AI matchmaker has other plans that have nothing to do with marriage or babies or family at all. For I am a willful weed in the grid's meticulously tended garden, and it seeks to swallow me, to transmogrify me into something else entirely. I spill my frustration into my thesis, shining a light on the subtle censorship and manipulations of our utopia, the inevitable human fallibility of our algorithms. The grid was created by people. Thus, it has inherited their biases, which took root in our algorithms in unexpected ways. They privilege certain plants, while others are classified as undesirable, even invasive. Screw the matchmaker's 1,000-year-old thoughts on my future. The network search yields 0 results for ways out of the inner galaxy. Yet when I manually comb through news feeds, I discover a job ad for a botanist needed in Tri Rock, an outpost in the Beltway outside the reach of the grid. Was the discrepancy a deliberate manipulation? Or was it a simple bug, an untested query? After all, why would anyone want to leave? I'm on a cargo shuttle, ready to flee. The grid can't have me, and it can't have this seed I've planted. I'll find it a new plot of Earth. Soil and sun and minerals from sources outside the inner galaxy. Outside the ordered utopia that my parents and Krishna are content to remain in. As I prepare to self-disconnect, I notice in real time that my professors are deleting my research from the university drive. Fair enough if they no longer need to grade it. Yet my work cautions against the swelling power of the grid, how our reliance on its neutrality has grown. Now each file, each word, each byte is being released into free memory, making space for more suitable data. The neutrality of the algorithms of the grid is a lie. The neutrality of the algorithms of the grid, the file deleted.
Maya tells us this about her story. Weeds is a prequel to my short story Princess, which appeared in issue 3 of Foreshadow, a serial YA anthology. Together, these are the tales of a mother-daughter duo that represent divergent viewpoints on humanity's relationship with technology. If the characters lived in our present world, Kavya might be a hacker who boycotts social media after discovering the insidious influence of foreign bots, while Leelam would be the coder who takes a job at Facebook to try to fix it from the inside. What I love about this story is how this empowers young women to really own and reclaim their own narratives. It shows us ways to work within systems, to resist systems, to choose what's best for us. And what I love about Kavya is that she feels that growth and nurturing is a form of resistance. So often we think of resistance as a violent act, but I think here we've seen that it's not, or it doesn't have to be. Our final story today is Metal Can Lanterns by Joyce Chung. A version of this story was first published in International Speculative Fiction No. 1. Joyce Chung lives in Singapore. Their fiction has appeared in the Apex Book of World SF2, We See a Different Frontier, Cranky Ladies of History, and Accessing the Future. Joyce also co-edited The Sea is Ours, Tales of Steampunk Southeast Asia, with Jamie Go. Their recent space opera novels deal with wolf clans, Starfang, Rise of the Clan, and Vineyards, Water into Wine, respectively. They also write speculative poetry, with recent ones in Rambutan Literary and Uncanny Magazine. Occasionally, they wrangle article editing at Strange Horizons and manage Umbel and Panicle, a poetry journal and e-zine about and for plants and botany, which they also founded. Alter ego Jay Damask writes about werewolves in Singapore. You can find them at awolfstale.wordpress.com and at Jolantru, Jolantru, on Twitter. This story is narrated by John Chu. John Chu is a microprocessor architect by day, a writer, translator, and podcast narrator by night. His fiction has appeared or is forthcoming at Boston Review, Uncanny, Asimov Science Fiction, Clarkesworld, and Tor.com, among other venues. His translations have been published or are forthcoming at Clarkesworld, The Big Book of SF, and other venues. His story, The Water That Falls on You from Nowhere, won the 2014 Hugo Award for Best Short Story, available narrated by John himself at Escape Pod.
Metal Can Lanterns by Joyce Chung, narrated by John Chu. Zhen dodged through the weaving crowd. It was early evening, and the main street had filled with sweaty bodies, walking legs, and rude exclamations. Zhen gripped his sister's hand tightly, slipping past the guards and ducking into an alley. He smiled as they skirted past the huge metal dumpsters and the bags of disposables. He didn't need to scavenge any items from them for reuse. He was already holding a bag of small aluminum cans in one hand. They jiggled. It was a reassuring sound. At last they reached the abandoned watchtower that had become their special hiding place. No one bothered them there, not even the factory supervisors who made their lives difficult and called them names. Pa said that it was a relic from the last war. Most people, especially the elderly, avoided the watchtower. Po wouldn't even talk about it, no matter how much Zhen and Zhiling tried to tease information out of her. Their grandmother's usually cheerful eyes would cloud over when they broached the topic. "Don't go there," she would warn. "Bad things happen there." Then she would tell them about the Guai, the ghosts whose undead spirits lingered on to torment the living. Zhen and Zhiling had spent days, weeks in the dusty room now web-cobby and heavy with memories. They gazed at the skies often. High up, the air was cleaner. Some nights they could even see stars. Pigeons roosted in the watchtower, molting white, gray, black, brown speckled feathers which Zhiling gathered to use as decorations in one of the rooms. The watchtower had a spiraling staircase which Zhen loved. They ran up, racing to the top, where the silence of the place filled Zhen, punctuated only by the crooning of the pigeons and the flap, flap, flap of their mottled wings. The moment passed. Zhen reluctantly tore himself away from the parapet. Zhiling was waiting for him in the spot they had privately christened theirs. Stones, strings of feathers, leaves from ancient books, and colorful glass shards hung from the ceiling, festooning the area. The room was their sanctuary. At home, they jostled for space. Communal habits were crammed. There was no privacy, no joy. Zhen entered reverently and placed the bag of cans on the floor. Zhiling was already sitting down, taking spools of string and white wax candles from her pockets. Zhen took out a penknife he had taken from Pa's pile of tools. Pa never noticed. His junkyard mechanic shop was a messy treasure trove. Quickly, silently, Zhen cut slits on one can. He examined his handiwork, then pressed down hard on the top of the can. The incisions bulged outwards and formed the shape of a Chinese lantern. Zhiling copied her brother. They did this yearly, always on the 15th day of the 8th month by the old calendar. The official date was not the same. Zhen knew that Zhiling was too young to remember why, but she liked to make older brother happy. When they had made 5 or 6 lanterns, Zhen glanced at the window. "Quickly now," he said in Pidgin Cantonese, Po-Po's language. "The moon has risen." Flashes of firelight illuminated the room, a sudden burst smell of gunpowder. Zhen had salvaged matches from the bags of disposables. They dipped their flickering matches into the cans and lit the candles. Immediately, the metal can lanterns came to life, throwing patterns on the glass shards that in turn sparkled like semi-precious stones. The moon rose, a large orange-yellow cratered orb. It was not the moon their ancestors, their elders, knew. It was a new moon for a new place. But still a moon nonetheless. Pa, Po-Po, and the other adults never spoke about the old calendar anymore. Sometimes Po-Po lit candles, burnt incense, and placed plates of sweets at the window of their tiny flat. For the Guai, she said. But if Zhen asked her to say more, her eyes would cloud and she would continue no further. Zhen knew they had traditions, festivals. Yet now they were fading away like the torn pages of the books he collected from the disposables. He read them in secret and learned about who and what they were. He didn't want to become a faint memory like Distant Earth. Zhiling rummaged through the pockets of her gray smock. Girls her age had to wear smocks. It was the rule of the new government. They worked in the factories in the day. Gray girls, they were called. She fished out a small parcel wrapped in crinkly silver foil. Carefully, she peeled the foil open, exposing a small circular disc of baked pastry. "You managed to get one?" Zhen whispered. "How?" "They throw away things in the upper shops," Zhiling said. "Even whole boxes. I grabbed one before the rest got to it." Mooncakes were sold at a very high price and considered an item of nostalgia. The government didn't care. Food was inconsequential, and the rich ate them mostly because they were expensive. The siblings broke the mooncake into smaller pieces and savored them. Sweet, creamy with hints of lotus seeds and nuts. Zhiling brushed the crumbs off her smock, watching as Zhen went over to the remnants of the books he had lovingly kept. There were pages missing, bits torn, whole paragraphs blanked out by black ink. The work of the censors. "See this? People used to celebrate this openly," he said, showing Zhiling a treasured page. Yellowed with age, it had a large picture of lanterns in many shapes and sizes. Roosters, spaceships, superheroes, flowers, fishes, dragons, phoenixes. They all looked new, the lanterns, and the children carrying them looked happy. "I don't like celebrating it secretly. It's so wrong." Frustration made Zhen's voice hoarser, urgent. "Shh! Not so loud! The Imperial censors will hear you," Zhiling hissed. Zhen gazed at the lanterns, unable to speak further. "What can we do? We are children. They are adults," Zhiling continued. Zhen recalled an incident in his childhood, before Zhiling was born. Imperial censors and soldiers tore the paper lanterns from the windows and streets, throwing them into bonfires. People huddled in groups, terrified. Pa pushed Zhen back as if to shield him from the sight. Ma was crying. Ma was still alive then. They sat in silence. Zhiling got up, brushed her smock again, and walked around their sanctuary, touching each item as if to commit them to memory. "We can make everyone remember, older brother," she said softly. "How?" Zhen asked, but hope filled his chest like a warm fire on a cold night. "By planting seeds with metal cans." Zhen laughed. "It sounds like you have a plan." In the months that followed, Zhen and his friends scavenged more aluminum cans, white candles, and matches. The teenagers formed whisper chains, passing messages, filtering news. It was their act of resistance. With the gray girls, Zhiling marked the refuse bins of the upper shops, noting when shop assistants threw things away. It was their act of rebellion. When the next 15th day of the 8th month arrived, cans started appearing on window ledges and in dark corners of the communal habitats. All across the city, in household and in cramped apartment blocks, away from the upper houses and shops, lights flickered as the full moon ascended. Whenever anyone asked why, the children and teens simply said, "I felt like it." Paper lanterns could burn. Paper lanterns could be torn apart. Metal can lanterns would last longer. As for Zhen and Zhiling, they carried on their celebration in their little watchtower, carving the metal cans and eating mooncakes. Their word had spread, and many had taken the challenge. They had planted the seeds of rebellion and resistance of the future. Together, they lifted their metal can lanterns to the sky, joining a network of fervent hearts and memories.
Metal Can Lanterns is a really great story for me. It's interesting and wonderful, and it shows light and hope and the way that we can take our older traditions, our forgotten traditions, and revive them and transform them. The ways that we can own our stories and spread them around our communities, regardless of whether our government thinks that we should celebrate holidays in any specific way. I loved the light and the hope in this story, and I'm glad we got to end our little wonders on this one. Coming up later this week, we have some other amazing stories, some that are painful and some that are hopeful and some that are all at once. And I hope that you love each of them as much as I do. Join us again in a few days' time for our second episode for Banned Books Week. We love bringing you the best audio fiction week after week, but we can't do it without your support. Your donations pay our authors, our narrators, our servers, and our staff. Please consider supporting us with a monthly donation through either PayPal or Patreon. You can also review us on Apple Podcasts, request us on Spotify, and consider the stories we publish for award consideration. There are lots of ways you can help. Join the discussion on the EA Forum, forum.escapeartists.net, or visit us on Twitter at Cast of Wonders. Come say hello. Cast of Wonders is a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and is brought to you during Banned Books Week by guest editor and guest host Julia Rios. That's me. For more information about me, you can follow me at OMGJulia on Twitter. Assistant editors Marguerite Kenner, Alexis Goebel, and Catherine Inskip. Associate editors Tonya Besbalco, Amy Brennan, Alicia Caparasso, Trace Fontil, William Haight Minor, Andrew K. Ho, Sean Proctor, Ray O, Susie Rodriguez, Carissa Sluss, Emma Smales, and Chris Tang. Audio producer Jeremy Carter, and community manager Danny Daly. Our episodes are released under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can download or listen to the episode on any device you like, but you can't change it or sell it. The Little Wonders theme, Neversus, is by Alexei Nov and available from Promo DJ or his Facebook page. Thanks for listening.